Now that we have our hex grid in place, let's add a little bit more detail to the scope. I'll go to a clean layer and go to my side orthographic view so we can see it. And I think all I really want is just this piece here. I just want this to extend out a bit. And I also want these knobs on the top and on the sides. Everything else I'm not real concerned about. I'm not worried about this or this or this. However, I think I would like to go ahead and add this piece here and use a path to create this tube or wire here. So let's start working on this piece right here. I'll go back to layer 2 where the scope is, and I think what I'll do is use this piece here. I'll frame it up and I'll take an edge here and extrude it forward and then angle it to get that design right here. So I will isolate this piece right here with the division key on the keyboard. And now I can tab into edit mode, and I don't think I need these faces any longer. So I'll hit the C key and click and drag those. And then I'll press X and delete faces. Now if I go to edge mode and just alt click this edge, now I can extrude this forward. I'll go back to the side view here. And if I extrude this forward and angle it, I think I can get this piece here. I'll hit E and then I'll drag this forward like this. I then need to move my cursor up here to the top so I can then rotate it from this point here. So I'll tumble around, go to my vertex selection and select that one point. I'll press Shift S to bring the cursor to that selection. And then if I select this edge, I'll alt click it to select that whole edge there. Now I need to rotate around that 3D cursor. So I can come down here and change it from median point to 3D cursor. And notice that the transform gizmo moves up to that point. All right, so now we go back here and I will hit R and rotate this back. So you can see it right about there. So now it's not quite in the right place. I need to extend this part down. So what I can do is, since that pivot point is up here, I can scale in the Z and it'll push it down from this point. So I'll hit S and Z and then pull that down like that. What we need now is an edge loop so I can extrude this rim here. So now I can insert an edge loop here and click and maybe drag it forward just a bit. But then I can come over here to this loop, cut, and slide panel, and I can choose even to make it even with an edge, and then I can flip it to make it even with this edge over here. Now that it's parallel with that edge, I can then drag it back just a little bit like this. And now I've got that rim that I can use to extrude out. All right, let's go ahead and tumble around here and let's go to face mode. I'll press Alt and click between two of the faces and hit E to extrude, and then I need to move my cursor back to the median point here before I scale, because if I hit S now and scaled out, you can see that's what I get. So I don't want that. So I'll come down here and change it from 3D to median point, and then I'll just scale in the Z and the X. So I'll press S, Shift Y, and then just scale out a bit like that. So now I've got kind of a rim there. The next thing I probably need to do is go ahead and close this off. So I'm going to hit that division key again to bring everything else back. And now I'll select this edge here and hit E and scale in so it closes off that gap there. Let's take a look at adding one of the knobs back here. To do that, I think I'm going to need to delete a few faces so I can insert a cylinder. I'll tab into edit mode here and maybe insert 3 edges here. Now if I take these faces here, I think I could delete those and add a cylinder. So I'm going to place the knob here. It's going to be a little bit smaller than the actual one here, but I think it'll be okay. I'll go ahead and delete the faces here. And then I'll select these edges and move the cursor to the center of those edges. I'll tab back into object mode and press Shift A and add a cylinder. I'll take the cylinder sides down to 8 and I'll change the cap fill to triangle fan. Now I can select these faces down here and delete them. And then I'll scale this whole piece down about like that. I think I can maybe make it a little bit bigger. Let's bring it out to something like this. There we go. Now I can bring these edges up a bit, like this. And maybe I'll bring it about like this. It isn't going to be exactly as big, but I think it'll work out pretty well here. I'll bring this edge down fairly close to the scope, and now I'll take this cylinder and combine it with that piece of the scope with Control J. That has now taken on the subdivision surface modifier that we had on this piece of the scope. But I also need to come over here to Tools and smooth it. Now let's connect it up. I'll go to Vertex mode, and all I want to do is just bring these up to here. So I'll select these 2 points and press Alt-M, and I'll choose At Last. Select this one and this one, and I'll go all the way around. And I'm being sure to select the scope and then the knob for the vertices, and then Alt-M and At Last. There we go. Now we can go ahead and add an edge loop here, and I need to add edges on either side of this, so I'll press Control B to bevel that edge, and then I'll drag out just a bit like that. And then I'll add one more segment right here, and that gives me an edge right in the center there. I'll press Alt and click that edge, and then scale it in a bit. And there we go. Now I can add a few more edge loops here to tighten these up. Scale in the Z, and I'll maybe add one more edge loop here. And there we go. So that's our knob for the top. I'll do the same process for the 2 sides as well. And in the next video, we'll take a look at using the Path tool to create this wire or tube.